Unplugged Borders, brought to you by Smota's Volcano Sauce.
Graeme Watson, the one, the only, having a pint. I love that. You know, it's kind of funny because when, I should, of course, go ahead right now and just apologize because we've been pushing this back several dates. This weekend went a little bit, because here's what happened. I mean, every pub in Reykjavik shut down. Just all of a sudden, we had a massive spike and everything just shut down. So what most people were doing was we were just getting drunk at home, right? Now, we had that pretty much under control back in March and April. You know, we'd had plenty of practice. I think we just hadn't had anybody. Like when you're at home, nobody cuts you off. You know, there's no, you don't have a barman who can say, all right, game time. So I mean, the weekend, it just shattered me. And I felt really guilty about, you know, having to rebook our interview just because of that. But then I also figured, and I hate to stereotype nations, but if any nationality is going to understand that state, it's going to be an Irishman.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, it sounds like, you know, you were dying. And I was like, I had Guinness. Well, I had like the last of my Guinnesses. So I had a Guinness ready, which I was going to drink during the interview, but I drank all the Guinness in anyway. So I have no Guinness left. So that's why I'm drinking whatever this is.
Well, that's like in Iceland, we have that saying that, you know, how do you know a man is thinking about the future? He buys 2 cases of beer. Which is that, you know, what we always go through is that we always buy the beer for tomorrow night, which we'll drink tonight, and then we'll have to go home over back to the place to buy another beer. And no, it's so I guess sort of when all was said and done, we did do this very traditionally. We did do this very sort of, you know, how the lead up of something like this would happen. So I'm very happy. I mean, we both had a cracking weekend, and the thing is, like, because I've been wanting to have you on now for a while, because I mean, not just because, you know, it's been ages, man. It's good to see you again, but also because, well, people, you know, who maybe are listening to the show right now and have been watching the Unplugged Borders episodes that have been taking place. The first one that we ever filmed was in Northern Ireland. And this was back during the time when we were allowed to just hop on EasyJet flights, you know, drunk book flight tickets to, you know, wherever, you know, and 2 days later we'd be, you know, nurturing our hangover in Brussels or whatever. So, you know, Ireland had always fascinated me. I was always interested in, you know, the sort of the culture, the history and everything. And I thought to myself, you know, hey, I was, you know, it was after one of the comedy shows in Reykjavik. And I said to a friend of mine who's a photographer, he really wants to make documentaries. I said, hey, I got this concept of a show I want to do. What's close by, and it's kind of, you know, it's a little, not a political hotspot, but kind of getting there. Because this was at the time a month away from the original Brexit date, you know, which they, after that, you know, extended 28 times. But, you know, you were chatting with me at the very end. So for people who haven't seen the episode, I really encourage everyone to go back and check it out, because what you were saying, because I interview at the end, you were giving us the tour of the streets, the pub street.
New York,
where you said Jerry Adams used to work, and he
That's
also
right,
we the mural walls and everything, and talked about Adam Turkington doing the tours. And what you were saying at the end, because the angle of the whole show was, you know, what's going to happen in a month when Brexit kicks in. And the funny thing was, you were giving these sort of back and forth, like, well, you know, the DUP wants it this way, other parties want it this way. But in the end, we have no idea what's going to happen. And the irony is, we're sitting here now a year and a half later, and we still do not know what is going to happen. I mean, is there anything, you know, can you shed any more light than what was going on when we chatted, you know, last February, a year before?
Well, that's what I was actually trying to remember. So yeah, when were you over? Was it February 20? Is that 2018?
2019. Yeah, it was. End of February 2019. Yeah.
So it feels like. So that was. Yeah, I mean, that feels even longer ago, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just because of everything else.
Just because happened. It's already been 6 years of this year. So.
Well, I mean, it's funny. Like, I mean, it's like you say, everyone. Yeah, 2019. I mean, you forget that Brexit was really. Like it's been so tediously Like it was every day. It was a drama every day.
Yeah.
And up until when was it, November or something like that, when they signed. Yeah, that's okay. Yes, so when they signed the
Halloween
withdrawal
deal.
agreement. Yeah, whatever. And of course, that was quite funny because the whole way along, the DUP had been, kind of like thinking they were all, they had this secured and, like the way they wanted it to be. And then it appeared at the time, although I was sort of skeptical, but I'll talk about that in a second. But it appeared at the time that they basically ultimately Boris threw them under the bus kind of thing and went, yeah, we're putting a border down the Irish Sea.
Yeah.
That's really, that's kind of the way it played out. So, which is, of course, like was the exact opposite of what they had wanted. But I mean, I was surprised at the time that they didn't make more of they weren't as upset about that as I thought they might have wanted to be, if that makes sense. No, as they might have been. But I think part of that was because there was possibly what would you say? Knowledge, some sort of anticipation that what is happening now, which is like the kind of possible tearing up of that deal. I think they may have not in a conspiratorial way necessarily, but I think to a certain extent, I think somebody said we'll fix this after it's done. Like we'll fix this down the line. I think that's probably what.
So is there like a bit of political schadenfreude on behalf of the other parties that are looking at the DUP and going, oh wow, look at this, our country might just be absolutely going back into turmoil and chaos, but we're kind of happy to see you guys fail.
Oh, totally, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think that's been that was definitely quite funny to watch, because when it came to it, I suppose ultimately England, Brexit as a sort of an English nationalist project, if that makes sense, ultimately trumped the Northern Irish kind of unionist claim on it. So at the end of the day, it was just like, in a way, that sort of attitude to stupid Paddies, came back to bite the unionists. That's that sort of English. I mean, what's been interesting? What's been interesting during this period of COVID and the coronavirus is that you're probably aware yourself that the way it's been handled across the nations, i.e. Northern Ireland, Scotland, England, and Wales, and the Republic of Ireland too, but obviously separately. It's like the regional identities have grown stronger because the English government this particular government of Boris Johnson and everyone around that sort of seems to be generating a lot of animosity.
Yeah, they're very, yeah. I mean, it's a sort of the whole Trump mantra is that he definitely is uniting us. He's uniting everyone against him. So that's exactly. I mean, Scotland it's because I moved there in 2016, and I know the referendum had been held 2 years prior, and living in Edinburgh, which is kind of a 50-50 town. I mean, Glasgow's obviously a completely different story, and you go up to Fife, and you're going to see people who are staunch, I guess Scottish nationalists in that sense. But it's definitely even the people on the fence. Just the very sense of just this. But first of all, it's a complete disregard for what people in outside of England are asking for, and also just the fact that they're looking at now. It's in literal. They're seeing in real time. Inaction is a life and death situation.
Yeah,
and so.
But that's it. I mean, there's a I think that the definitely the drive for Scottish independence is growing through this. I do think it's strengthening the case for some sort of United Ireland type scenario here. And again, that's coming more from Protestants who are sort of defecting from
really
from the normal unionist background. So I mean, I grew up I'm from a Protestant background, but I would never say I've never really been a unionist, or I'd never consider myself a unionist. Mm-hmm. But then I wouldn't necessarily have considered myself, like an Irish Republican either.
So I think before we get into any further, we should probably just give the basic rundown of what basically happened. So In a sense, Northern Ireland, the cause of the conflict. So there's Northern Ireland over a span of decades, over the span of a long time, went through something called the Troubles. And it started, in a sense, from something called the Plantation of Ulster, right? Where, I mean, you can you sort of give us the...
Go back and further.
Yeah, so
I think that's fair, yeah, that's fair.
So Plantation of Ulster, you start there, and then you sort of head down the line of, there's more and more Protestants from Scotland and England who are moved over, because that's how Britain used to do things, divide and conquer. So they'd send their own people, and then they'd give them, candy, and not give the Catholics candy. And then they start loving the Queen, but then they started hating each other. And then later down the line, there becomes this like real rift where Catholics are just being openly discriminated against. And one of the things that started in the late 60s, there was a lot of it was they couldn't buy housing, right? They were just like, for example, the city of Derry. It was it Derry Omagh that didn't even have a Catholic representative in like a 90% majority Catholic city. I mean, it was those kinds of examples where people were just completely like, I've been obsessed with this for so long that
I was like, I'm pretty impressed that you're. I couldn't retell it as well as that, to be honest.
No, but so then in the like early 70s, so the Civil Rights Marches then started taking place after the Martin Luther King's March on Selma, right? So the Catholics in Northern Ireland became very sort of inspired by the marches for Martin Luther King, and they were marching for civil rights as well. Then, of course, Unionists weren't too happy with that. British military gets sent in, and bada bing, bada boom, people just start fighting and blowing stuff up. And then everything people just got tired of fighting. Was it 1997? They signed the Good Friday Agreement, which put an end to the violence. 2005, the IRA sort of formally disbands, and it's been sort of leveling out ever since. But an interesting point because we went on the mural tours in Belfast, where you get to talk to the taxi drivers, and they tell you everything that you need to know about what's been going on now. And an interesting point he made is that because there's such it's not just Brexit. There's a generational shift taking place, which is that the people who are, growing up in their 20s, mid-20s, they don't remember too much from the Troubles. So they are left with that cultural sort of animosity towards the other side, but nothing is to stop them from actually thinking, well, hold on, actually we don't want another car bomb. We don't want something like this to happen. And another thing I wanted to touch on here was because you were saying about Protestant Catholic backgrounds and stuff, because we get taught that it's a religious war, but in a sense, it's not really religion. I mean, nobody really goes to church there, right? It's culture, it's cultural identity. It has nothing to do with actual nobody could quote a Bible verse on the spot or actually attend church service on Sundays, right?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, like I say, that's one of the things, the way it's been really, that's one of the reasons, obviously, it's been very complicated because, religion, I mean, I suppose the best way to sort of show that it's not about religion is that the first, the United Irishmen which was like the first kind of, move towards a sort of United Ireland was, most of them were Protestants, right? So they were Presbyterians, so there is actually like quite a strong Protestant Irish sort of nationalist identity and movement that has existed, but through that period, through the 20th century, that became polarized, and so it became you were Irish Catholic and an Irish Republican or a nationalist, and you were a Protestant and you were a Unionist or a Loyalist. So which were kind of like, which is funny, those terms, they're kind of like, what would you call it? Gradations? Is that the word? Like,
well, yeah,
like shades.
Everyone's
shades of, yeah. So that's it. So it's kind of like, that, and so I guess whenever, I mean, I don't know if you've watched Good Vibrations. Have you seen the film Good Vibrations?
It's on my list.
Yeah, it's a good film because it's about punk in Northern Ireland, basically in the 1970s. But it has that thing of like in the night before the Troubles started, it has the kind of thing where Protestants and Catholics were kind of mixing together.
Oh yeah.
But when but it also shows that bit when the Troubles kind of started, like the violence started. how suddenly, these rifts suddenly just ripped apart, and the kind of people became, people who were like living on streets apart, would no longer speak to each other and that sort of thing. So so that polarization of and so whereas it's not that simple, if that makes sense. It's
No.
not.
Well, that's what I said with the Miami Showcase band, right? Both Catholics and Protestants would go see them.
Yeah.
They didn't, they're young kids. You going out to a concert for the first time, whatever. You don't really care about the politics of it all. But no, it's sort of, it follows the trend that, for example, you saw maybe in, Bosnia and Serbia during the 90s, where everyone is sort of from that Yugoslav background. But as soon as the politics and everything gets ingrained, and you start dividing the borders, it just taps into that, I guess, that tribalistic mentality that humans have. And that's, that's one of the analogies I hesitated to make it on the first show of Unplugged Borders, but I ended up doing it, which was saying that it's essentially Coke versus Pepsi with car bombs. Because I just it's like, well, what is it? Like, it's not the religion itself. It is this it's like, really? Oh my God. So it's about a battle. Oh, you're marching because of a battle. Was it World War II? Did your grandfather? Well, no, it was in 16, 78. No, what was the year again? 16.
16.
When was it?
1619. 1619. Isn't that right?
Battle of Boyne in 16.
I can't believe I can't remember.
Every single person in your country right now listening is just screaming at you. 1698.
It's been a long lockdown, man.
1698.
I think it's 16. I think it's 16.
Okay, hold on.
You know what it is. I know what it is. Sorry, I just consulted my Protestant. It's 1690. 1690.
1690. Okay. Well, we were both in the ballpark. No, but that's a great point. If we can't even pinpoint the year, yet that is the thing that everybody just they must have been absolutely just shocked that they couldn't have that parade this year, right? The July 12th.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's it. I mean, again, that's why this year has been really highly unusual.
Yeah.
For the things that have like, we locked down on. I mean, the lockdown happened the day before St. Patrick's Day. Right. That's when our lockdown in Ireland, including Northern Ireland, pretty much started. In England, it was a few days later.
They kind of had to do it on St. Patty's Day.
Well, they knew. It's like, I guess they knew what was going to happen, but it was like, it was kind of, so that's when it began for us. Mm-hmm. And like, it's been interesting that one of the interesting things that I've noticed here during the whole coronavirus thing is that, a lot of the sectarianism now exists in working class Protestant and Catholic communities. That's where you'd still have flags, and the kind of, those things would be really quite key to people's identities. But it was interesting during the coronavirus thing, we had the whole clap for carers, and like, I don't know if that makes sense to you, like the NHS, our health service, we had this kind of like, everyone had these little rainbows, and thanks to our NHS workers. And weirdly, during that time, and I was trapped here in North Belfast, where I live, which is like it's a fault line. It's like flashpoints. So there's Catholic and Protestant communities all around this block, pretty much, and like, it can get, over the years, there can be quite a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
But nearly all of them had the same. Instead of putting up the Irish flag or the the British flag, they all put up like the clap for carers flag, like the NHS blue colours. So weirdly, there was a sort of united front at that time for supporting the NHS and our key workers and all that through the whole lockdown period that we've had here.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. So it was an interesting year in that sense as well. For a while, all of those areas had the same stuff going on.
It's nice. I mean, it's nice that all it takes for you guys to be united is a global pandemic. But something did do the trick. But it was a good point. I was watching, it was Sky News or BBC, and they interviewed these two. As it's always that same thing. It's like, well, this guy is a Protestant, this guy is a Catholic, and they're working together. They had the blue shirts on, and the point that they were making was essentially like, well, this wall right here, I can't go here. He can't go there, but Corona can go there. Corona can go here. Yeah. Corona doesn't care. It's like, well, that's a good point. It doesn't care.
I mean, so there has been at the start of this anyway. I mean, I think what's interesting now is that I kind of wonder, I mean, I presume the same thing in Iceland, where you're getting this kind of fracturing now of, um, what would you say, consensus in the belief in the virus.
Oh yeah,
And
I
like,
mean, everyone's a fucking expert here. It's insane.
yeah,
I mean,
I mean, if I
mm.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, from what I know about my travels through Ireland, yes, everyone has that every country has that sort of mentality, but I'd say you guys are a lot more humble about, sort of just the way, the society. I mean, maybe they were just different with me at pubs, and they wanted to give a good impression. But then when they're talking to you, they're completely off the rails. But I feel like people in Ireland and Northern Ireland would be a little bit more humble to scientific explanations and just the general consensus. Icelanders, we have that sort of old Viking mentality where, no, I'm right, I own this land, screw you.
But that's the thing is, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I'm trying to detect whether there is, in terms of the people who believe it's a hoax, or who, there's so many different, like hippies. Seems like hippies and Nazis, there seems to be are finally together. I don't know how this has happened, but I'm also trying to figure out if this all links. If there is a sectarian element, like is one community kind of starting to believe like, a face mask is a muzzle. Don't muzzle me. Like, is it a product? Loyalists doing that, and Republicans? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how it's filtering out that way. But
I don't think the main problem is going to be checkpoints for your country in the future, because nobody's going to want that fucking job. Imagine having to sit there with the clipboard going, "Oh, you're a Nazi, but you're also a hippie. Are you? But you're an Orangeman who does okay. But it's like you were going back to the splinters of, it's the IRA. It's the IRA, where it's the new provisional IRA, but the new provisional IRA that drinks on Fridays instead of Saturdays, and then they just keep going. But they only like the color orange. They only like like they only date women who are born in February. It's just a very sort of. And you're right. It does go into a sort of. It does go into a very tribal. It exacerbates it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I just think. I mean, it feels like everyone's going crazy. I mean, it's funny. Not to bring. I mean, I hope. Keep me if you want to ask me questions in case I go off on rants. But
no, go
on. I was thinking. It's like what's going on in America. Like, I'm watching kind of with interest what's going on in America, and. Like, I have a friend who is also like who I probably should be careful about this. But like, I'm surprised. Like, he seems to have become a bit more alt-right than than I ever expected. And I'm finding it interesting because, again, that sort of polarization in America now between these people who it's like support. I mean, a lot of it seems to be centering around Black Lives Matter, really, which is feels kind of sinister to me. Like the conservatives, the Republicans seem to be really making that, and it's that thing where COVID has become very politicized as well. And if you wear a mask, you're a Democrat, and if you don't, you're.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you wear a mask, then you're supporting Tom Hanks and pedophilia, and
and all the QAnon stuff. So I mean that yeah. Like, again, I suppose it's like it feels like watching in real. I think, like, growing up in Northern Ireland, I'm always very sensitive to when you can start to feel that kind of weird polarization of people starting to exist in different universes. Does that make sense? Like, and becoming worlds apart. And because I just remember growing up as a kid and a teenager and looking around me where I grew up and kind of getting quite frustrated, just frustrated with the arguments and the division. I don't know. You're just kind of.
Yeah,
but I can sort of see that in real time in America at the minute.
But here's what I want to ask you, because I mean, we obviously knew this before we arrived in Belfast, and even though we were there in 2019, years and years since the Good Friday Agreement, and what we're always told when we're there is, don't talk about it, don't mention it, and that was. That sort of, I mean, remember they had those murals, right? Like loose talk, I guess referencing the World War II posters, like loose talk cost lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you think about a bad marriage. When has holding in everything you want to say ever solved the problem? So do you think, do you think that portion of it may actually exacerbate the problem in the end? That because you had this 20, 30-year period where everyone just had to shut up, that now that people are just sort of, the bull is out of the gate, and it all just comes in flooding.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny. I mean, I feel like people, you do see. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I don't know what the perception is outside of Northern Ireland. Like in terms of what is about to happen. And like, I mean, I think I said to you in a message, it's like maybe we're like in denial about what's about to happen. Because I mean, I suppose the truth is there is trouble ahead. I suppose that's there is trouble ahead, because whether it's with Brexit and COVID-19 and the there's bound to be, I think there will be a referendum at some point, or border poll, probably in the next, I would guess, in the next 5-10 years maybe, and I think that will clearly create tensions. I mean, I think what would you say? I think it feels to me like the weight of things is towards a united Ireland. I mean, I think even unionist politicians have more or less admitted that.
Do you think it might be? Do you think it might be something Britain will eventually just have to give up?
Sometimes I think they will. Sometimes you sort of go, I think they probably won't. I mean, I feel like they, we're kind of a massive pain in the ass. I mean, that's the whole. I mean, the whole reason Brexit was stalled, and the whole reason it took so long, and the whole reason it's back in trouble, in terms of being reopened, the whole agreement, is all to do with Northern Ireland. Like, Northern Ireland is the primary pain in the ass, because we're the only, I guess, part of the UK that has a border with an EU country, and that can't be resolved. I think the problem is that can't be resolved without transgressing the Good Friday Agreement. That's kind of what seems like. Yeah, that's the problem.
Why? Because I've wondered about this, like, because they pinpoint everything to the border. They say, like, if there is a border, people are going to shoot at it. They are. That's going to be the main form of it. And I wonder, like, is it mostly because of symbolism?
I think.
Or is it economic, or do they? Because I wonder, like, why that that itself, like, judging from the, the checkpoints were hit a lot during the Troubles, but it was mostly just. It was a lot of just civilian attacks. It was a lot of attacks on pubs, on police stations in and around Northern Ireland. But why the border itself? Would that be such a big target?
Yeah, well, I mean, I presume it's just it will be manned by presumably the British government or the Irish. I mean, it might be manned by the Irish government. I mean, I presume the British are actually, that's what they're trying. They're probably going to try and create a situation where it will be the Irish government who'll have to create a border. And that's because so like there's a wee bit of politics going on here as well, in terms of like who's going to be brave enough to put this border up.
It's gonna be like another siege of Janetville, only on the border between the north and south.
And I think you're right. I mean, as they say, like, the Northern Irish border is very low. Like, it's impossible to have a border the whole way along. Like, there's lots of, it stretches the whole way. Like to Donegal from where sort of Newry or Newcastle or somewhere. So it's like, so it goes the whole way along, and there's lots of country crossings and so on. So it's kind of a, so it's sort of an impossible task in any case. But I think, I think it's more the symbolism. It's more like if you have cops there, or the army stopping people coming in and moving around, it will immediately create trouble.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it's sort of, like you said, 5 years that there's going to be a border poll, like, where they're going to ask people, do you want the border or not? I mean, Brexit's kicking in after New Year's. I mean, so it's going to be just 5 years of limbo, or?
I mean, I think this is the weird thing. I mean, that's what we don't know. I mean, obviously, we thought the withdrawal agreement would. I mean, if that had stayed, I mean, maybe it depends if we fall out with no deal, which is very possible. That's completely uncharted territory. I don't think, like I said, I don't think anybody really knows or even wants to think what could happen in that scenario. I mean, and what's crazy is that, again, looking at like Boris Johnson, the Boris Johnson government, and even looking at how they've handled the pandemic.
Oh yeah.
It's like, well, it's been in a weird way, it's been funny, because obviously if the pandemic hadn't happened, this was going to be a year of get Brexit done, and it was going to be all guns blazing and trying to put a positive spin. But oddly, what's happened? I mean, in some ways, what's happened is probably worse than Brexit in terms of the economic effect of lockdown and so on. So like any of the problems that come from Brexit, they can sort of blame on the effects of the pandemic, I think.
Yeah, well, I think that was the same strategy with the European Union, is that anything that happens, well, I think they know that they're never going to get a good deal from Brexit. So they came up to a point and said, well, if we just drag this on long enough, then we can eventually get to a point where it's going to be shit for us, but we can point the fingers at the EU. Yeah, and I think it's the same thing with, because I worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs this year for 6 months, and when the Schengen thing fell out, I used to handle the Schengen visa applications, and towards the end, I was actually briefly put on the Brexit desk. And that was one of the highlights. Well, it was actually pretty cool because you get to sort of, because Iceland's not in the European Union, so Iceland, Norway, and Liechtenstein are actually currently negotiating a separate trade agreement with the UK, which is, not going as planned. But you're right, COVID did definitely stall everything. There were a lot of, in the early stages, there were a lot of, PMs and civil servants who were on the Brexit negotiations who did come down with COVID, and then finally it was actually kind of cool. I got to sit in on a meeting with Lindsay Appleby, and it was because what I saw from everyone on the British side was that the civil servants really wanted to get this done. They really wanted to, they didn't complete. They just had just a completely bipartisan, very sort of no-nonsense approach to everything. But I just felt like the whole team just kept getting hamstrung by the British government, because this was, and the plan all along is to, drag this on long enough so that we can, because they obviously don't care. They just don't care about the people they govern. I mean, it shows the class division in the UK.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's what has become. I think that's become very apparent, especially to me. People like me. I suppose, again, not that I have had any love for, the British government or anything, but I think it's become very aware to me. What would you call it? There's a sort of the English aristocracy. I've become very aware, that of this English aristocracy, kind of class, elite, who really don't care about, they don't care about Northern Ireland, they don't care about Ireland, they don't care about Scotland, they don't really care about Wales. They care about England, and the English, and not even, they might not even care about. They don't even really care about England. They only care. I do think that they only really care about their own project, if that makes sense. Whatever Brexit is. I mean, I don't think anyone really fully knows what the project is, but
going back to we were talking about conspiracy theories, I think one of the reasons why they've been exacerbated so much in the last, it's not just COVID and Facebook and everyone's just getting their information from one source, and which is often their crazy uncle or somebody at work, is that it's just a cocktail of things. They're angry. They've been in lockdown. They haven't been able to go to the pubs. They haven't been able to do anything fun. They've rewatched Tiger King already 20 times. A lot of them are just unemployed. And what they're seeing on TV is, politicians who keep their jobs, and because they are being told that they are the essential ones when they're not doing fuck all. And then you have people from the doctors and medical community who, bless them. But the thing is, they maybe often don't realize that, guys like Anthony Fauci, he is very, very essential right now. And then you have, if you have a working class family looking, go, well, I lost my job at the mill or whatever. And, and then they're just angry. And then on top of it, you have what's happening right now, which is that everything's becoming so apparent. The Jeffrey Epstein thing with the sex cults, and then the obvious consensus is that governments don't care, and then they go, you know what, every conspiracy theory I flirted with in the last 10-15 years is literally true. Why stop now? Fuck it, QAnon. They're not only pedophiles, they're eating the kids, and it just I think that I think that I don't know, it's a bottomless well at this point.
I think you're right. I think that definitely is what it's about. It's kind of because everything, I guess they're like grains of truth to everything. of course, Russia's everywhere. Like that's that's the other thing. It's like, is that real? Is that not real? I don't know. China as well. Who knows what's going on? And TikTok. So you're like so it's like I say, and then that's mixed. And I feel like QAnon must be. I do feel like it must. It sounds to me like somebody has invented that as a prank, just because. And it's like, I don't know, to see how ridiculous can a conspiracy theory be, and people still believe it. I don't know.
Well, what was it? That congresswoman from Florida, is it that like she believes in QAnon? She's pushing that theory. Yeah. I remember when the joke was on people in the DUP who didn't believe, like, what was it, that dinosaurs existed or something, or that they didn't believe in evolution.
Well, you see, that's the funny thing is that one of the kind of the most, what would you call it, anti-mask, anti-COVID politicians is a DUP politician, which is not a surprise at all,
Yeah.
In fact, he's like the MP. He's the MP from my hometown in Larne, actually. And like he's just going, I won't be muzzled, which is but he has in some ways he has quite a lot of influence as well, and you kind of wonder, for the people who support him, he's in a way he's completely undermining the public health message, even though his Arlene Foster, who's also in the DUP, is the first minister. So it's kind of interesting again. So it's not surprising that there are elements of the DUP who are, of course, kind of, I guess you say, anti-science in lots of ways. They're kind of are also taking a role in this too.
Yeah, but it feels like they're just like no one's hiding anything anymore. I think that's what's also beautiful about it, is just that it probably just also makes our job a little bit harder as comedians. Not that we can't do shows ananyway, but the fact that because we can't make shit up anymore, because it's all out in the open. I remember Patton Oswalt had a great, early on during Trump's presidency, Patton Oswalt had a great comparison about Donald Trump, because he was asked, isn't he good for comedy? He's like, no, it's kind of like, imagine it this way. You're walking down the street and you see a guy taking a shit in the middle of the street. Now you turn to your friend because you want to make a joke about that. But as soon as you look back, the guy has now taken the shit and is wearing it as a hat. And that is sort of because I remember I interviewed Ali Weinstein, the Russian comedian, for my last podcast, and we mentioned the Navalny poisoning, and I obviously had to ask her about that as well, and she said that she can't. I think it's so, they're not even trying to hide it. It's so just out in the open. Putin used to do it with a little James Bond kind of evil guy in James Bond class, where he just kind of slip it, and now it's just like, we're gonna put it on your water bottles in your hotel room and know that you're gonna pass out at the airport. Like that. That's taking it to the next level.
You see, that's what I kind of think. That seems to be. That's where, again, like you say, this kind of blend, where you get into this kind of conspiracy thing, because it seems like everyone is taking lessons in this kind of open, like, it's kind of like politicians do something wrong or corrupt or whatever, and they kind of go, and what? Mm-hmm. Whereas the people in the UK, anyway, used to resign, when they were kind of found disgraced or whatever, they would resign or whatever, but nobody resigns anymore. People just go, I'll just weather this out. I don't know if do you know Dominic Cumming?
I was just about to mention him. What was it that he needed to drive his whole family to a resort or something? What was the story behind that? I can't remember now.
Yeah. So it was basically like he's the top advisor to Boris Johnson. He's not unelected, but he's kind of like sort of a mastermind. He never dresses in a suit like all the rest. He sort of dresses in a tracksuit for some reason, and during lockdown, he basically drove from London to, I think it was some Newcastle or somewhere in the north of England, to see his parents and so on. And then
he live in a fucking castle, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. And then and they went and they took a day trip to test his eyesight. The whole thing was ludicrous. But what was even more interesting, apart from that story itself, was how they decided to weather that storm, which was they did this, even though he's not an elected politician at all, like he really shouldn't even be a public figure, I suppose. But basically, I think it was on a Sunday, he went into the garden of 10 Downing Street on a wee table, all the media around him. But this was like him being like what would you call it? Like it was like a master class in how to try and get away with something. So it was almost like he had agreed, I will take a ritual humiliation where I will try and explain my actions, which nobody will believe. But because I have done this thing, because I have confessed to this, or not even, I didn't quite confess, but because I've tried to explain my actions in details, like an hour long or something, I will then just wait this out for 2-3 weeks until until it goes away. So he was never going to resign, but it was just a really interesting. It was a really interesting thing of. It was really interesting ritual of self-humiliation. That makes sense.
Well, it felt like I was watching an episode of The Thick of It. It's just, they get into this absolute mess, and the whole thing just turns into like a Monty Python back and forth of how to solve the problem, and then it just becomes even worse. But then, of course, like every episode, the next episode starts with something new, and everyone's already forgotten about what happened in the last episode.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's exactly what it was, and I mean, it was kind of. It has been spectacular. I mean, that's the thing. Like, there will be more moments like that from Dominic Cummings because with Brexit, because he is the mastermind of Brexit, and that's why they've kept him in.
Yeah, of course. I guess it's like with the COVID. They think that now he's already had it. He can't get another one. He's already had his scandal. Yeah. So anything he pulls after this will be people just that they have fatigue. They have scandal fatigue.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's it. And I mean, but again, that's what I think. Again, you look at the US and America, and that's what it seems like that's what's going on there as well. It's like scandal fatigue. Like Donald Trump has a scandal every kind of
2 seconds,
every day, pretty much. So it's like
every tweet, I think when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, I think there was just this. Like everyone's asshole in America clenched up a little bit harder because they knew how this was going to turn out. Like if Mitch McConnell's going to want to hijack this, because now they find that they don't even care that they're going to be viewed as hypocrites when they said the same thing to Obama, that you can't put a secret like you can't put another member of the Supreme Court on this close to the election. This is just another. It's just another piece of the chessboard that they can use that they didn't have before.
That's it. I was going to say, so I feel like I'm going off on a big tangent on America, but I was thinking like it's going to be interesting in November. Like, who knows what's going to happen there? I mean, that could be a precipice. The whole idea, like delegitimizing the election, basically. Like how is it going to come back from that? I don't know.
Was it Conan O'Brien the other day who tweeted, "I can't believe it's only 50 days until our last election." At that point, because I remember I was living in Edinburgh during the election when because I had to go to work the next day at the pub, but I was up till 4 or 5 a.m. and I was monitoring Twitter the whole time. And as soon as Donald Trump gets elected, Seth MacFarlane, the Family Guy creator, tweets out, "Hey, at least pot's legal." At the same time, everything there's we never let a tragedy go to waste.
Sorry, it just popped into my head. Conan O'Brien was in Belfast. I think it was not long after you were. I can't remember. And it was he was spotted having a pint outside Bittles Bar. I don't know, which I will take you to next time you're here. It's like a strange little bar that's like the shape of it's a really long, narrow bar. And he was having a wee pint and someone took a wee video. But yeah. It's cool.
I wasn't on the street. That wasn't on the street that we were there, right? What was the
that's Duke of York.
Duke of York. Is that the name of the Duke of York Street? And then there's the Duke of York bar on the front there, and then you go down
on the side. Yeah.
Yeah, there was the one in the middle I really enjoyed. That was sort of kind of off to the side from all the murals.
Yes. Oh, the Dark Horse, I think.
Dark Corner. I think that was the name of it. It was. I mean, that was just that was one of the best nights we've had because we were just permanently, or I was at least. My friend doesn't drink, who was with me, but I felt like I had to do Northern Ireland justice to, go out every night. We had a lot of fun. I wasn't too hungover there because we didn't stop. The last day we left. I think we arrived on Thursday. The show was on Saturday, and then on Sunday, the day after, we went up to the Giant's Causeway. And what was so interesting is that the drive up. So if anybody has ever headed to Northern Ireland, I get you have to do this drive. The Belfast up the sort of coastline there up to the Giant's Causeway in the north. I think it's where they filmed Game of Thrones.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's sort of you get away from the city, which is obviously has its history. The gable walls, guys with all the guns and everything, and then it just becomes more and more Celtic, or more and more sort of old and
Oh yeah,
it depoliticizes the more you go up. I felt, at least, because. And it just, by the time we get to the Giant's Causeway, it's this beautiful, like, oh, the legend goes that, was it Finn McCool built the causeway so that he could fight a Scottish giant, and it's like, oh, cool, that's we're back in mythology now. That's actually quite refreshing.
That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, I suppose it's like. By the way, I always, for some reason in my head, I laugh because for some reason I feel like. Maybe I don't know if it's you text me this, but I feel like you were because you're from Iceland, you were incredibly unimpressed with the Giant's Causeway.
I literally thought it was the south coast of Iceland. It looks exactly. I mean, it's beautiful. It's very beautiful. But geologically, we are next door neighbors. I mean, when you get to the south coast of Iceland and the north coast of Northern Ireland, it's just that, and the Scottish as well. Geologically.
Yeah.
It's right next to it. So, but it was very nice. It was very nice to go check it out, and very, very a lot of hot destinations. And speaking of hot, I just want to get a word into our sponsor here. So one of the things Iceland is known for right now, we're known for a lot of things. We are now becoming more and more known for hot sauce, and our sponsor, Smodis Volcano Sauce. Speaking of geology, every single one of his 3 hot sauces that he's just put on the market this year or last year are named after the 3 volcanoes in Iceland. And depending on how big they are, they get the name of how spicy they are. So we get Askja, which is a little bit mild. We get Hekla, which is the one that erupts around every 10 years. It's a medium spicy one. And then we do Katla. Katla is what we did during lockdown. It was just absolutely mental, man. We put this is the hottest spicy hot sauce you can get for your chicken wings in Iceland. And we're really happy to have Smode sponsoring the show. And what we just got today, fans of the show and people listening in, if you're stuck during lockdown, whatever you're doing, you're at home, you're watching cuties on Netflix, you got to punish yourself a little bit, grab one of these babies. And we are so happy to have not only him as the sponsor of the show, but to say thanks to that, we have a promo code. So for those of you who want to try out Icelandic hot sauce, for those of you in Iceland or those of you listening abroad, we can also send it to you. Just go to his website, Smodis Volcano Sauce. That's SMARIS, volcanosauce.com. And you can type in promo code BORDERS for 10% off on your first purchase. That's promo code BORDERS at checkout. So, getting back to the show, one of the things I wanted to ask you, because, we're not just political scientists with doctorates and never shutting the fuck up, because that's what we do. What we do is stand-up comedy. And I guess it's the same thing. It's one of the things I mentioned, at the show during Unplugged Borders Northern Ireland, is that we could have talked to journalists. We could have talked to, reporters and historians and stuff, but nobody has the level of cynicism that comedy does. Nobody can tell it like it is. And I was so taken back, just blown away by that show that you guys were doing in Belfast. And what was the name of that? So we went to Alison Spittle was the host of the Alison Spittle show. So she's had a spot on she's been on BBC Radio, right?
That's right. Yeah, she's big star in England now as well. Yeah, she's doing well.
It was just an absolute. And I got to warm up for her. I remember watching. Yeah, I was watching the show, and just the vibe in it. It was so. Like, I've been to all these comedy shows around the world, but for some reason, Belfast especially, and especially Northern Ireland, has a very sort of special uniqueness to it, right? It's got a je ne sais quoi to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sets it apart from even other comedy venues in the UK.
Totally. I mean, it's sort of so it's interesting actually. So obviously, there's no real gigs. So the Black Box hasn't reopened. Are there gigs at all in Iceland at the minute? Have you got any at all? Or
we did until last weekend. So last week.
You're sort of back in another sort of lockdown, but
we're it's lockdown part 2. This time it's personal. No, we were locked down for the whole spring. We opened up in June 15th, and then during the summer we've been doing shows. But again, it's just been kind of a rocky start, and then cases just blew up, and now we're back on lockdown. I mean, Black Box and everything in Northern Ireland and Ireland and UK everything's closed, right?
Pretty much. I mean, pretty much like in Ireland, I think everything has been closed. Although strangely, in Belfast, comedy has had a bit of a resurgence in that some bars have realised that you can't do comedy as a socially distanced. Yeah, I don't know how actually safe it is, but some bars have been trying to do like a kind of a socially distanced gigs basically. So like Colin Geddes, who are like, I mean, again, if you come back, Helgi, you have to meet. I don't know if you met Mickey. You need to meet Mickey Bartlett and Colin Geddes and Shane and all those guys as well. But like they became like superstars over the last year or so. Like really, like playing like arenas like in Northern Ireland, nowhere else. But it's huge. I mean, like 4 or 5 sold out shows in like a huge in our biggest arena, and it's like it's really really interesting. So comedy has had like. There's been a sort of an explosion of around certain acts who have become huge locally, and so they're kind of running these shows that are kind of like socially distanced. I mean, so yeah, I don't know. It's pretty interesting. I mean, I don't know how long it'll last because obviously, like actually, as we're speaking, new lockdown measures are being
introduced,
announced. Yeah, so I don't know if those kind of gigs can keep going, but been interesting for comedy actually because Black Box, like Black Box is quite a small room, or the room that we were in is quite a small room, but there is sort of like this kind of surge of interest in like in comedy at the minute as well.
Well, how do they do those shows in the arena ones? I mean, do they just keep it like 6 feet apart and like?
Well, so the arena shows haven't happened during coronavirus, but a lot of what was interesting is that a lot of the acts that had suddenly reached that level had their arena shows just before all of this happened.
Oh, okay. So that's what everyone got to see right before there was no other competition in that field.
It's kind of like they had a peak. They had this kind of huge peak, which obviously would have paid them has paid them handsomely for to be able to take time out during this year. And of course, now it's like the focus. They've been able to focus on the content creation.
Right. It was a bit like Kurt Cobain. They quit while they're ahead. Yeah,
a little bit, forced to be. But it's like it's I think it's really interesting what's happening here. Because for years, I don't know what it's like in Iceland, but for years it was a struggle here. Like stand-up comedy was one gig, every Tuesday in the Empire, and it wasn't as popular as even in Dublin. There wasn't a lot of stand-up, but.
Well, this is one of the things Marcus O'Leary, who's a DJ in Dublin, he did stand-up comedy. He was performed here in Reykjavik as well. He mentioned when we were there that the comparison between comedy in Dublin and compared to Belfast it's worlds apart. I mean, he said because what he said it's so weird because comedians we're little bitches. We come from broken homes. We were bullied as kids, and for some reason, when we get a 5-minute laughter, we think we're God's gift to the world. So we just all of a sudden always think that we deserve everything that's better. It's like I've been doing comedy for a year now. Where is my Netflix deal? And we always. And we'll get nasty, we start drinking, we start partying too much, we're kind of pushing other people under the bus. And he said, nowhere has he seen that in Northern Ireland. Like and he said it's so weird. Like they're all helping each other, they're all friends, they're all helping each other grow. Because the consensus was apparently that if one of us succeeds, we all succeed. It's a very communist sort of mentality.
It is, yeah, and actually, I think that's still true. I mean, obviously there are little rivalries and things, but there's nothing like the politics. There's nothing like because you do hear about the Dublin scene or other places where it's like fisticuffs in the street. It's like whereas like here, actually, everyone actually does support each other, and it's true because like the fact that Colin Geddes and Shane and guy called Paddy Raff as well has become huge. All the rest of the gigs, the smaller gigs, have also benefited because comedy is now a thing that people do in Belfast. Comedy is a thing people go to regularly, and so, but that then spreads out to all gigs, if you know what I mean. Like but of course, I mean that's the funny thing. So there's a new venue in Belfast, and we were kind of building up a little show there, kind of with the idea that tourism here is going to be huge in a couple of years, and there's all these students, kind of like student halls of residence being built around the area. So we're thinking like this is going to be the
Oh, so you're already anticipating for the next sort of well, I don't want to use the wave of tourists because wave is a bad word right now, but
well, that's what I mean. That was what was in my mind last year, you know. But then I thought, what could possibly go wrong? Boom! I was like, okay, damn, okay.
Well,
So,
I mean, I know that there are some because I've been talking to some of the American comics, and like I know there's some club in New Jersey where they've invested a lot of money into outdoor shows, and they've actually had a lot of success with it. And you know, saying that California or Texas has been doing some outdoor shows. He's like, yeah, but it's Texas. I don't know if you've ever been to Northern Ireland, Iceland, Scotland. Outdoors isn't something we can really bank on.
Yeah.
Even if you go to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, the tent shows. I mean, the tent shows are they're just disastrous. I mean, they're so hard to work. Have you ever done a tent? Have you done an outdoor tent show?
I have, like in little festivals. I've never run one, but yeah, I've been involved in some, and no.
Well, it feels you got the light shining in. It's a white tent. You got the light shining in. Everyone's humid and hot, and they just they hate their life. And everyone outside who's trying to enjoy a pint, has to listen to your dick jokes, and I don't know.
It's messy. Yeah, it's messy. And like, I mean, I do like England. This didn't actually ever. I don't think this happened in Northern Ireland at all. But England, they had these kind of car park shows. Like, so it was like people in cars watching comedy, and they instead of laughing, they honk their horns.
Yeah, that's
pretty weird, isn't it?
It is very weird. I don't think I could do a show. I did 2 Zoom shows. Did you do any Zoom shows? Did you do Zoom shows? No.
I watched. I tried to watch some, but not for very long.
Yeah, no, they're tough cookies to crack. The first one I did was, we were just working out the kinks. It had like 60 people, and they just, because it's easy to just get in your underwear and log on, and you're watching a comedian in their living room holding. I held this mic basically, I dislocated it just to get some feel of being on stage, and all I got or just laugh emojis. So I'd tell a joke, silence, and then it's just an emoji. And then every now and then it'd be like an angry emoji, and a guy around, sorry, I meant the laugh emoji. And it's just, so we fixed it for the next time. So the next time we did it again, and we had everybody turn on their mics. So then we could actually hear the laugh. So and it actually felt nice. And what they did was they opened up a lot of windows. So it was like a extended Brady Bunch. They'd have like all these Russians, this guy in his basement who's probably one of the hackers, of the election in America. And then you'd have, pretty Russian girls. And, and I started out by saying, this is weird. I'm usually not the one I'm usually not on this receiving end of telling the entertainment to Russians. Usually it's Russian girls doing it to me. And then you see everybody in their, in their corners, and they're laughing. And I was like, this could work. This could really work. I don't want it to, because I want the alternative, but I don't, you gotta, maybe this is one of those turning points in comedy where we used to do vaudeville, and then in the 30s it was radio, and then in the 50s
Zoom.
It was the group. Yeah, well, and then Zoom is now the new one. But,
I think it's funny in a way. Like, oddly, you see, I was sort of actually basically, my plan for 2020 was to take a break, where you take a year off basically from like running gigs and so on. And of course that worked out. That everyone in the world took a break from comedy.
Did you write anything new, or?
No, I should have. I mean, like I said, I've been making these kind of like podcasts. There's one called I'll plug one, which is called Inside John Patrick Higgins, which is a short story podcast. You can put that in your links.
Yeah. What's it called? Inside Job.
It's a guy's name, John Patrick Higgins.
Oh, Inside John Patrick Higgins. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just a short story. It's kind of like little dark horror tinged short stories. So I sort of went that direction of like producing little things. Mm-hmm. Like other comedians went on Twitch, which I think has been really interesting as well. Like a lot of people seem to like. I don't really fully understand what Twitch is, but
it's when I realize I'm old. I don't really understand TikTok, and I don't understand Twitch. So I think this is my time.
Yeah, well, that's it. So Twitch has been another place that people have, like kind of gone to. I mean, I think it's like I say, I guess more. I always feel like I'm more of a comedy producer these days, or have been, an event promoter and stuff. But I'm always really interested in the creative ways comedians respond to challenges like this, and I think that's what's been interesting during this period, is just seeing how people with not having any gigs to do have kind of. I mean, I believe some people have been using OnlyFans. Did you see this? Which is I think that's really funny as well.
Well, I mean, you want to be careful about that rabbit hole, because so I can't remember who it is. Tom Segura was mentioning. I think one of his comedian friends just kind of as a gaffe just started this OnlyFans site where he's rubbing peanut butter on his shoulders, and he just started getting hundreds and hundreds of dollars from anonymous perverts, and he's just like, I can't stop now. I gotta keep rubbing peanut butter on my shoulders, because in Iceland we've been having this discussion about. I don't know how the UK goes about artists, how the compensation works.
Oh yeah.
So, but the thing is, in the pecking order of artists getting compensations, I think open micers and headliners, medium comedy clubs are not very high up in that priority line. It's going to be musicians. It's going to be people who play Wonderwall very well, or painters, or playwrights, and then it's going to be us. And I saw that here in Iceland that they're offering these artist grants or whatever. I didn't even I'm not even going to apply, because I know I'm just gonna. It's because you're taught from the grind, when you start grinding as a comedian for 10, 20 years, that everyone says you shouldn't do it. Your parents, no support. All your friends think you've become a joke until you get that one gig or something happens, and then you start going up and up, and then before you know it, you're famous. And everyone says, wow, what a great comedian. It's like, well, you weren't saying that 15, 20 years ago.
You're right. Yeah, it's there's a lot of naysayers. It sounds like people in Iceland are very like people here.
Yeah,
there was he's shit. I know him. He's not funny.
But that's what makes us. I think that's what probably makes them a little bit more. It's like, what did the musicians do? Oh, I sang on a balcony. It's like, oh, really? I started OnlyFans, and I'm doing Russian shows for hackers who probably have all my porn sites now. It's because we've been in the grind for so we have to. We're the most war-ridden people in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think neglect. I mean, like I say, I mean, people are. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, I guess every country's different in terms of how it's treating its artists. But you're right. It's we're all at the bottom of the pile, and yes, comedians will be at the very bottom of the pile.
We will be. I mean, even the court jesters back in the medieval times had better gigs.
Yeah, true. Right, true.
I mean, I hope it's not. I know it won't be, but I think if anything, this year has probably been a good tester. It's like we don't, I mean, we don't know how it's going to turn out in the next few years in terms of World War III and China and India, and America ceases to become a democracy. You guys break up into 5 different countries. London turns into basically Dubai with money, or with money, but it's going to be Europe's Dubai. That's one of the best examples I heard from it. That it's going to be Europe's Dubai, where a lot of money goes in, but with no geopolitical significance. And yeah.
I was going to say, that little 2-minute summary of the future was. I mean, I'm going to save that, because I do think all of those things are going to come to pass. And I think that's what is strange about this period, is that you kind of think it'll be over soon, right? And we'll all be back at gigs and all this. But right after this, there are a lot of things which are going to compound.
Yeah.
Whatever's been happening.
Well, I mean, I would say COVID. Yeah. COVID didn't. Oh, sorry. No, I was gonna say COVID didn't change anything. COVID really just exacerbated the changes that were already happening. So the countries that hate each other, this class division and all that. I mean, this was happening after the first economic crash back in 2008, and I think it's just we never fully addressed it, and we were just anesthetized with Facebook, and we were kept relatively happy with cheap products on Amazon, and there was this sort of and I think the reckoning will come. I have this sort of fantasy of comedians doing shows in like post-apocalyptic worlds, how that would turn out. There'd be like, we'd have to do shows, but then prepare for like bombing raids from either enemy, mini nukes or the machines when they rise up. It'll be like, so what's the deal with this? And then Alexa shows up, and she's morphed into this super fighting Terminator thing. I think even then, I think we'll probably still find something to talk about.
Oh, sure. I think that'll be like next summer, to be honest. Like, my God.
Well, things changed. I mean, we were, it was a year and a half ago. The biggest problem that, that people were talking about in Northern Ireland was Liam Neeson being racist, right?
Oh yeah. Oh God, don't bring that up. I feel like everyone, that's like one of the most embarrassing moments of being Northern Irish in the last few years, where you feel, well, come on, Liam.
It wasn't because we mentioned this. You had a great we talked about we compared it to Father Ted, that he couldn't come back to Ireland now because he's like, I hear you're racist now, Liam. Are we to be racist as well?
Awful moment in our history.
Oh no, but it's such an Irish thing. It's like it's because the Irish element of it is that you didn't intend on it. It was just such bad luck.
Yeah, it was more like, all right, just just ignore what he said.
Yeah. So what's next for you, man? What do you you and your troop? I mean, are you guys still in touch with all the you guys coordinating?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really. I mean, it's funny because so like one of the regular Saturday gigs that we run usually like a Saturday afternoon gig. Like that's one of the kind of staples. Mm-hmm. It's called Kill Your Darlings, and that was the last. And I just realized like that was the last comedy gig like that we did basically in March or whenever it was. And of course, it couldn't have been better named in terms of the possible COVID risk that was at that gig. But yeah, I mean, I think everyone. I mean, to be honest, I think everyone's in some ways. I think there's quite a few of us. I think are taking it as a break. Like because you sort of it's like you probably know yourself. It's like it's a fun, but it is kind of like you're out every night. You're drunk all the time, or you're hungover all the time. Like I think a lot of people. I think it's been a time. Yeah, I think it's just interesting. I feel like whenever gigs come back, if they come back properly, I think it'll be a different. I think it will be a different comedy scene. I think mm-hmm. Some people will have jacked it in completely. Others who have prospered during this period. And I don't know. Yeah, so I don't really know what's ahead.
And people are just gonna show up like they're gonna be like, oh. It's so good to be doing shows again. I would love to, in lieu of my set, I want to speak to you all about the Lord Jesus Christ. It's going to be like this.
There's definitely going to be some of that. I would say.
Yeah, so some people just drink themselves near to death, went to rehab, and now they feel like comedy's the X factor, and they want to bring everyone out of the. I don't know. I mean, yeah, there definitely could be, that thing happening, but.
What do you think how are comedians in Iceland taking it?
Well, the thing is, a lot of them have become parents in the meantime. So a lot of my friends doing shows here are like they're dads now. So like what they were saying is when we opened, they didn't want to come to the shows because of the risk of getting COVID. They had a newborn at home. So like you think because you never even thought about that element. I was getting absolutely wasted with this guy a year ago, and we're going to after parties, and now he's being all responsible. I think. Well,
I was going to say like that. That's what I think is funny. So like the gigs that are kind of happening here, I feel like it's the young comedians. It's the comedians in their early 20s, like early 30s who are doing it. Whereas I feel like I'm just about to turn 40, but I feel slightly at risk, more than I want to be, Whereas, like, I feel like those guys are going out for the herd immunity, like.
Oh yeah, they're fine. They know it's going to kill us anyway. And I think they don't mind it. Well, the only hope I have, the only thing I really hope doesn't happen, and I'm not saying this because I don't understand this new form of art, and I don't think it's like, oh, this isn't music, that kind of thing. But I really hope that the whole culture of TikTok and 20-second punchline prank, whatever, becomes the replacement of whatever stand-up comedy is. I don't know what form it's going to be in, but that people just become so enthused by the attention span just completely fades away that the only thing they're going to be able to pay attention to is a 20-second twerk followed by a prank of someone on stage. And who knows, maybe that'll kick ass, but I really don't want to see, I don't want this to be the death of the traditional stand-up comedy form.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really interesting thought, because I mean, I've thought for the last sort of 10 years, I think stand-up comedy has been fighting a battle with, just the memes and, we're constantly connected to, entertainment. Sorry, just read my phone is at 15%, so it might, and it's not plugged in because there's no point plugging it in.
No worries, we'll wrap it up soon.
But but yes, I think, essentially our phones are our entertainment. They've got those, and like a lot of it's like observational comedy, so I think you're right. Like, I think, but at the same time, I do think people want something more. And I think stand-up comedy at its best actually does give you more than just those kind of like superficial banter laughs, That's
Well, it's like people reacting to things. I love that's become the most important, like one of the most popular things on. It's like, all right, YouTube, what's going on? All right, so a lot of you have been requesting me to watch a video of this cat taking a shit on a guy's lawn. All right, let's see here. Oh, and then like 20,000 views. I'm like, how the fuck is this a thing?
Wow.
But again, it's short, it's lazy, it's to the point. It's the low hanging fruit, but it's a chippy on the way home from the getting drunk. That's it. That's what it is. It's not the long dinner party that has class and wine and nice conversations. It's it's you fighting a seagull over your cheese, chips, and curry on the way back to puke in your 1-bedroom apartment. That is. But you're gonna want both. You're gonna want the fast food. You're also gonna want the nice sort of thing. And I think that's why stand-up comedy in its original form is never going to be irrelevant.
I totally think so. Yeah, I mean, I think that's, and I actually feel sorry for younger people, where like you've grown up. I mean, that sound really old. I'm aware of that, but it's like, who've never really, that when they grow up immersed in that. They're maybe not aware of like, I don't know. I do feel like stand-up comedy can, at its best can be really profound. That's what I felt when I was growing up in the 90s. Like that's when I was a teenager. Like when I was listening to like stand-up comedy in the night. Like I don't know. It was like Bill Hicks, John Hughes, and all these. It was like, yeah, it was really incredible. And I think. But there's sort of there was a lot of meaty stand-up then as well. Like, I mean, Bill Hicks was probably the good example of that. But yeah, you kind of I hope that continues in some form, or that comes back, or and I think because the thing.
Yeah, I think it always will.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so too. I'll just check. Sorry, let me just check my. All right, I'm at 13%. So, if you got any last questions? Okay, for it.
Yeah, no. I think definitely think that you're right. We're gonna get back to normal. We're gonna get back to doing this. When is another question. What we do in the meantime, I think, defines it all. But I think at the end, it's just gonna be this, and definitely because do you anticipate Belfast having another, like actually holding the festival next July?
I hope so, actually. Yeah, it might do. So that's like Comedy Lab, our sort of yearly experimental little kind of pre-fringe thing. I would say so. Like if things are back to normal in some form, then I would hope so. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, I think the very least we should stay in touch and see how that could work out, because Iceland has we have our Reykjavik festival in the beginning of July, and I remember you guys had your sort of in the mid to the end of July.
That's right.
Before Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So if Edinburgh Fringe Festival gets fucked again, we can at the very least sort of maybe combine those two things and see if if we can, do a back and forth. I'll bring you over here. We'll go to Belfast, and because I swear to God, it's impossible trying to find a decent pint of Guinness here.
I was gonna say your show, which I actually wanted to see. I don't think I've seen your show. Is it called "May You Live in Interesting Times"?
Yeah, the new special.
Yeah, I was like, could you have chosen a better title at this time?
It was I thought it was I kind of ripped it off from my last year's special, which was also named "May You Live in Interesting Times," because that was I was touching on some stuff that happened in January, and I thought that was the. And then of course I had no idea what would happen the year later, but I think this is the year we attached that title.
Yeah, okay, that's good. No, I'm really keen to see it. I'm looking forward to it. And weirdly, there's a guy. I have a friend who actually lives not far from here, called Phil Hamilton, and he's always asking about you because partly he has family in Iceland as well, like his sisters and things live in Iceland. But he's always like, do you ever see that? Is that Helgi guy coming back? Because he's always quite keen. He's quite keen to see your show.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah, no,
there's one person that's going to come.
All right. Well, hey, I've done worse shows at Fringe. So, Graeme, it's been absolutely so great meeting you again. It's been we had a cracking discussion. Is there anything you want to plug? Any podcasts or anything that? That's fine. Whatever happens, man. Let's aim for next year, man. Let's see how we can make this happen, and we'll bring something beautiful back into it, buddy.
That's great, man. Good to catch up with you, and take care.
Take care, Graeme. All the best to you, man.
All right.